Welcome, Christian Warriors. My name is Keith. We're going to break down a report that was done recently by the Center for Religious Liberty, where they documented crime that occurred over the last year, and gun crime is through the roof right now. Now, look, before we start, I've been getting a lot of questions in the comments about the rifle that's behind me. I just want to talk about it for a minute. Hold up. So you all have been asking me questions about the rifle that's been sitting on my credenza back there. Asking me, what is this? It's a Maxim pistol in 300 blackout, and I'm going to be doing a video series on guns like this for church security. We're going to talk about backpack guns, so we'll have an episode just on backpack guns and what that means. How do you deploy it, and so on, so I can just show you if it's effective or not. So I'll probably do an episode just on this and how it works. Is it good enough for what we want? How far is it going to go? Is it something that's feasible to be deployed? So for those of you who are asking, that's what's been in the background for me. All right, so now we got it in its proper place. If you love guns and you love Jesus, you're in the right place. We talk about church security here. We talk about all things to do to protect yourself, your church, and to do it in a Christian way and to make sure we follow all of what the Bible sets forth for us to do in life. All right, let's talk about this report. It's Hostility Against Churches in the United States. It is a wonderful document that breaks down all of the crime that has been occurring at churches in the United States. Now, I give you a breakdown every week where I talk about all the crime that occurs at churches across the United States. None of this should be a surprise to you, but I like how they put the data together. Now, in 2024, there were a total of 415 incidents that were in this report. That averages out to 35 crimes per month. Now, California led pack in crimes at 40, which, to be honest, California is the most populous state in the union. But having been a California cop for 30 years, I can tell you, it's also because they have a pro-criminal agenda and they really do victimize victims and they legalize crime for the most part. I want you to remember that when Newsom runs for president, he would absolutely destroy our country.
This is an AR-15. This is a weapon of war, a weapon of mass destruction.
All right. Pennsylvania was at 29, Florida and New York at 25 each, Texas 23, Tennessee and Ohio at 19. Now, the most common category of crime was vandalism at 284 incidents. I can tell you this number is low. It is significantly more than that. Now, when I do my weekly report, I will only put in 2 incidents of property crime, meaning vandalism or burglary, just because there are so many. I just cherry pick the best ones, the funniest ones, the ones that I think you can learn from, and I put those in there. If I put all of them in there, there is way more than 284, just to be clear. Now, there was a notable spike in gun-related incidents, and that more than doubled from 12 in 2023 to 28 in 2024. Now, this isn't a surprise. Every time there's a major gun incident at churches, I come on here, and I will usually the same day do an incident and break down what's going on. Why? Look, I don't know why. I can give you my opinion. I think my opinion is because the world is a crazy place right now. Number one, the Bible tells us this stuff is going to happen. But number two, the world is becoming a crazier place. And when that happens, people, when they lose it big, and they usually attack the church because it is something that's visible. And all this stuff going on in Israel, in the Palestinian areas, is not really helping us. And you have all the pro-Hamas protesters out there that are really demonizing churches. I think, my personal opinion, I think that's why it's happening. But you, as a security team member, should take notice at that huge spike in guns. Now, let's go over each category, just to be clear, so we have a clear understanding. We have to look at this data, and we have to have a clear understanding of the crime that's listed so we can better protect our church, not turn it into a bunker. You just have to work harder to keep your church open, let people come in and worship, and just have better discernment at finding who the criminals are and keeping them out. You do that by reading reports like this and watching Christian Warrior. All right, now when we look at vandalism, it is the biggest threat, and it makes up more than 2/3 of all hostile acts. Now, some cases are politically motivated, while others seem random, and some appear to be thefts that turn destructive. Now, in Portland, Oregon, a small church of mostly older congregants faced repeated vandalism from rocks through the windows to chemical damage from fire extinguishers. And in Texas, the First Christian Church in Brenham had just completed a restoration project when vandals smashed more than 15 windows with rocks and bricks. In California, thieves ripped copper pipes from a church, Oregon, causing $10,000 in damage. To be clear, that California one, that's people that are meth addicts. They're addicted to methamphetamine. They often do that type of crime. That was a very common thing that occurred in California. Why? Because California pretty much legalized drugs. And then now when the cops find somebody with methamphetamine or fentanyl, they give them a ticket. and they send them on their way. There's no more going to jail anymore. And so that's why you see more crimes like that in California. Just my 2 cents. Again, I want you to remember that when Gavin Newsom runs for president, I want you to realize how much damage he did to that state while everybody's fleeing. All right, arson. There were 55 incidents of arson or attempted arson in 2024. And in some cases, entire church buildings were destroyed. Now, look, every week in my news class, I always tell you, you need a 4K video system, a burglar alarm, and a fire alarm. I do that because some of you still refuse to get that burglar and fire alarm. I don't know why. It is the most basic tool that you can do to protect your church. Now, look, in Athens, Tennessee, an arsonist set fire to St. Mark AME Zion Church after killing the church secretary. The fire burned through the roof and destroyed much of the interior. And in Ohio, 4 churches in 2 counties were burned within 4 months. Investigators believe that one person is going to be responsible for that. Look, we have an arson every single week. Now, look, some weeks, I think that there's more arsons than what the Centers for Religious Liberty put in there. Now, to the people that put this report together, I hope you're watching. I suggest that you follow my weekly news report where I talk about all the crime that occurred the week before. You can go get it at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. I put it out every Saturday. It lists all the major crimes that occur in churches every week. I'm putting in 2 to 3 arsons every week. So I think you're missing some because this makes it look like there's only one arson every week. I think the crimes are much more. Now, look, the other thing that happens too is that stats for crime are often skewed because police administrators want it to appear that crime is down to make everybody happy. We saw this recently in DC. DC says their crime is down when Trump is trying to put people in to take over the police force in DC. And I've talked to cops in DC. They're very happy that's happening, by the way. There was a commander in DC that was skewing the stats to make his district look good. So we know the crime stats are being skewed continuously, no matter what the politicians tell you. I can tell you personally, I was told multiple times to skew the stats when I would put out my yearly report for my agency. I'm just one example. I talk to many other cops all around the country that have this same problem. Don't believe what they tell you. Now let's go to gun-related incidents. Now, this category saw the sharpest increase. Now, near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a man walked into Jesus Dwelling Place Church and pointed a gun at the pastor in the middle of his sermon. A deacon tackled him before shots were fired. I reported on that incident when that happened. You can go see my full breakdown over here on YouTube where I break down what went right, what went wrong, and what you can do to prevent that from happening at your church. Now, at Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas, a woman with a long gun opened fire during a service, injuring 2 before being stopped by police. I did a full breakdown of that Lakewood Church, Joel Osteen's Prosperity Gospel Church. I did a full breakdown of that here on YouTube. That actually made my YouTube channel big. That's where most of you started subscribing, was with that breakdown. And I break down what happened there. And I know some people aren't happy about it, but it's the truth. Bomb threats, there were 14 in 2024 that turned out to be hoaxes. I can tell you there were a lot more than 14. But they still forced evacuations and disrupted services. A good example is in Cocoa, Florida. 2 churches received packages claiming to contain bombs accompanied by politically charged notes. Now, look, there were other incidents that occurred, including assault, service disruptions, and threatening intrusions, including a masked man in a cloak that interrupted a mass in Hudson, New York, saying, "All hail," and holding a bottle over his head. And in Louisville, Kentucky, a man broke into a church and attacked a staff member with a hammer. The one thing that is notably missing from this report, and I report on it each week, is the number of sexual assaults perpetrated by staff at churches each week. You are more likely to have your pastor molest a child than you are to have a violent incident at your church. I cannot overstate that enough. The reason why it happens is because pedophiles infiltrate the church because they have easy prey at the church, and churches often hide the crimes that occur from that pedophile. I think we need to expose that. I think that it needs to be included. The Centers for Religious Liberty, I hope you're watching. I really think you should document the amount of pedophiles that are infiltrating our church to hurt our children. All right, now let's talk about the implications for church security teams and what you can do to prevent this. Now, all the data that we see should shape how we train and how we prepare our people. We have to work on vandalism prevention. We want to improve lighting, install surveillance, reinforce vulnerable entry points, and work with neighbors to watch the property. You also need a burglar alarm, a fire alarm, and a 4K video system. I can't emphasize that enough. Now, arson prevention. We have to secure our trash bins away from the building. A lot of people are opportunists. They'll see the trash bin next to the building, light that on fire. That catches the building on fire because you don't have a fire alarm at your church. Nobody notices till it's fully involved. You want to lock access to flammable materials and have fire extinguishers accessible. I can't tell you how many times people have used the gasoline for the church lawnmower to light the building on fire. I love my church people, but you guys can be really lazy sometimes and leave a lot of those flammables laying around for opportunists. We have to do active shooter preparedness. We want to conduct regular drills, improve our armed response capabilities, and assign clear roles during a crisis. Now, when you do active shooter training, it is not just the security team. A lot of people think we just need to teach the security team how to deal with an active shooter. Look, your 4 guys, 8 guys, 20 guys, however many you have, are going to be wrapped up into that active shooter. Your pastor is going to have the biggest role. He's got to stand up there, calm everybody, and then give directions on what we want them to do. Is your pastor prepared? What happens if your pastor is targeted for that attack? How are you going to calm the congregation? How are you going to evacuate the congregation? Where is that going to happen? You're going to need your greeters and your parking lot attendants out there moving people and getting emergency responders in. It is a whole of church action that you're going to take. You want to talk about bomb threat response, right? Have a plan for evacuation, communicate with law enforcement, and check the premises before and after every service. You want to have de-escalation training for the possessed or the crazy people that come in. You're going to have those unstable people come in, and you need to learn how to de-escalate and to talk to them to get them to stop what they're doing. Now, look, I always like talking about the biblical perspective of everything we do here. I would want to put this part first because the Lord should always come first, but I always put this towards the back because I realize that people aren't going to watch if I start off by talking about the Bible, and I need people to watch and understand. But before you leave, we have more stuff to talk about, including actions for your team, but we have to talk about the Bible and what the Bible says about everything that we're talking about. And for here, I'm going to turn to Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 9. And it says, "But we prayed to our God and posted a guard day and night to meet this threat." Now look, the early church faced open persecution. They didn't give up meeting together, but they also took steps to protect themselves. Our call today is no different. Now, preparation is not a sign of fear or a lack of faith. It's stewardship. God has entrusted us with his people, and we have a duty to guard the flock so that they can worship freely.
One hand on the work and one on the heat, just in case.
Ain't nobody stopping who this build.
Now, here's some action steps for you and your team, because I know so many of you show this in a team briefing environment. Here are some things that I want you to talk about with your team. I want you to review your church's security plan in light of all these incidents in all the categories that we talked about. And I want you to think about what you can do to fix it, what you need to improve. I want you to update contact lists and response protocols for law enforcement. I want you to train in both physical security and soft skills like verbal de-escalation. I want you to be that enhanced greeter. I want everybody to think you're a greeter and not a security team member. You can turn it on when you need to and go, "Hey, church security, I'd like to talk to you for a moment," and assert your authority. But as people come up, shake their hand, say hello, be that enhanced greeter. And then when you see trouble coming, go ahead and intercede in it and see if you can work something out to keep violence from coming into your church. I want you to conduct a full building security walkthrough before every service and after every service, looking for people that are hiding after service that might be there to break in later. I want you to look for bombs. I want you to look for anything that might be harmful. I want you to look for unsecured doors that are supposed to be closed. Just do that whole walkthrough and make sure everything is safe. And I want you to share this report, and you can share this video if you want, with your church leader and your whole safety team so they understand the reality of the threats that we face. Now, for pastors, I want all of us to turn to Ezekiel 34. If you're a pastor, you know everything about Ezekiel 34, and you probably know where I'm going. And I want to thank my friend Jason Carr, my pastor, who just this morning when I was talking to him reminded me of Ezekiel 34 and its impact on pastors. Ezekiel 34 delivers a sharp warning to shepherds who neglect their duty. God rebukes leaders who feed themselves while the flock goes hungry, who fail to strengthen the weak, heal the sick, bind up the injured, bring back the strays, or search for the lost. Instead, the flock is left scattered, vulnerable, and at risk to predators. Now, in the context of rising hostility towards churches, this chapter speaks with renewed urgency. Pastors' role is not only to nourish the flock spiritually, but to ensure that they are not left exposed to physical danger. When threats are real from vandalism, violence, or disruption, shepherds must not dismiss them or assume it won't happen here. Ezekiel shows that God holds leaders accountable for the safety and well-being of his people. Neglect is not neutral, it invites harm. A faithful shepherd watches over the flock, anticipates danger, and acts decisively to guard them. Now, for pastors, I want you to have 4 takeaways for this. Protection is part of shepherding. Just as feeding and teaching are spiritual duties, so is guarding against wolves, whether those wolves are spiritual or physical. Complacency invites danger. Thinking it won't happen here is the very mindset Ezekiel condemns. God expects active care. Now, seeking the lost, binding wounds, and strengthening the weak all require intentional, prepared leadership. And accountability is real. Number 4, God says he will hold shepherds to account for the safety of his flock. All right, I want you to read this whole report. The download is available at christianwarriortraining.com. If you head over there, I have weekly information, training, intelligence, forms, like everything that you need, free training, christianwarriortraining.com. It's my gift to you as a fellow follower of Christ. The only thing I ask, if you want to support my mission, my ministry here at Christian Warrior Training, a paid subscription goes a long way. It helps me run Christian Warrior Training. It helps me provide this training for free. It's my full-time job now. I just want to tell you guys how much I love you, and I love that you are taking care of our churches. I hear from so many of you, and you tell me how all this information is impacting your ministry and making it safer. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd like you to pray for the safety of all of our churches. I want you to pray that our crime rate against churches go down. We know it's not going to, but we need to pray unceasingly for the safety of our pastors, our churches, our congregations. And the other thing I want you to remember is your ABCs. Always be caring.